and welcome to Great Expectations. Does your little one never listen? Have you tried the naughty chair and given up because it just doesn't work? If you answered yes, well then today's show is especially for you. And for me, we are giving you the discipline do's and don'ts with fantastic pros, child behavior consultant Bridget Thompson and play therapist Shannon Eggers. Ladies, welcome to Great Expectations. A very interesting discussion ahead of us. But before we get there, let's hear from our kiddie panel today.
My mom gives me a smack and then she sends me to my bedroom for 6 minutes.
Haley, you are naughty. Go to your bedroom.
You are going to get a big smack. You're going to be in the laundry for half an hour for think about what you have done.
No! Okay.
Go and sit on your naughty chair.
Okay. I had enough of this nonsense.
Yes, I'm sure it's all sounding very familiar. And what can we say? They absorb. They hear everything and remember everything. Don't we agree?
Absolutely.
I want to just first set out exactly, Bridget, what do we mean when we talk about discipline?
Okay, I think discipline's an extension of the relationship that you have with your child, where you are starting to model and mold behaviors. So you are starting to enforce certain expectations that are acceptable in society, in your home, to your child, and you're starting to have those expectations.
Is it a way to behave, to put it simply?
Yes.
Would that be?
Yes, I would say that that's probably a good phrase.
If we had to now compare discipline versus punishment, what would be the differences there?
Okay, discipline, as I said, is where you're trying to mold a behavior. Punishment is a tool that you use in order to mold that behavior. Not always an effective tool, but a tool.
Well, I can tell you this discussion couldn't have come at a better time. For me personally, it's been a rough couple of days at home. But according to the Child Act in this country, you're not allowed to harm your child. And from what we know and what we gather, in about 25 countries around the world, you are not allowed to smack your child at home. But not so much so in South Africa yet. And I just want to find out, what are the basic rules on discipline then, and getting this right and having a harmonious household?
Well, just to start off by saying that it's not easy, and that you all have good days and bad days, and you have successful moments and you have disasters, and to recognize that. But step number one, I think, in a home to create a disciplined environment is routine. That level of predictability, the children know exactly what's coming next. It brings a sense of calm to the house. It enables the parents to run things more smoothly. So, yeah, I think a routine. And then very clear expectations. So mom and dad are on the same page and they know exactly what they expect from their children.
Important.
Very important. And often a difficulty. That's often a starting point when we're trying to correct a discipline problem, is to get mom and dad on the same page. And backing each other up. You know, even if you don't agree, back each other up in front of the children and thrash it out later behind closed doors, but in front of the children, if dad says this, mom backs it up.
It's a united front.
Absolutely.
And also about, I wouldn't say embarrassing your child, but about shaming your child and sort of disciplining them in front of others, or criticizing them in front of others, shouting and screaming and reprimanding. What are our thoughts on that?
Yeah, discipline should really never ever be humiliating, or and that's why I say punishment per se is problematic, because it often is punitive, it's negative, whereas we're looking to mold a behavior that we like. So we like to correct something that's not appropriate, and we like to reward and acknowledge something that is positive.
Okay, so discipline, not what we think it is. Discipline and punishment, two very different things. I think we need to make to set that out. Shannon, at what age do children start to understand discipline and what is being done in this process?
I think children understand discipline from the very beginning, but the way we implement it is very different. I think when we have an active little baby who is crawling and doing things that are dangerous, we can use our voice or the tone of our voice to indicate that we disapprove of something without yelling or screaming, but very firmly saying, no, dangerous.
That's about a crawling baby.
Absolutely. Right. And then distraction. It's an essential tool in those early months when we're under the age of 2, that if you disapprove of a behavior, because we can't sit with a little person and reason and often explain, we need to distract them from that situation. We need to remove them, give them a better alternative, so that we're showing them that they need to move away from the behavior we disapprove of. And I think even in a pre-verbal phase, we offer praise and encouragement for behavior that is positive, because although our child is perhaps not yet verbal, they absolutely pick up on our tone and the manner in which we communicate with them. So if they're sitting in their high chair and they're eating a meal, we say, good job, good effort. If they're lying still while we change them, if they come and pass you something in a acceptable way, instead of lobbing something at you across the room, we put energy into praising behavior that is good and right and positive.
Speaking of age appropriate, and I think we would like to clear this out, in my house it happens a lot where I'm the one who says, she's at that age, you know, they do this at that age. At what point does that stop being an excuse for bad behavior or a child that needs to be disciplined in some way?
Well, I think the thing around knowing what age-appropriate behavior is that it allows us to know that it's acceptable at a point of development, but that doesn't mean that the behavior goes sort of unchecked or unmodified, to use that word again. I mean, in terms of discipline, we want to be encouraging positive behavior and discouraging behavior that's unacceptable. So yes, it's age-appropriate to have a tantrum, but already we want to start putting firm boundaries into place.
And when it's disruptive in the household,
Absolutely.
and it's causing problems for everyone else
So
around
a tantrum is age-appropriate, and we say, I can see you're angry, I can see that you're frustrated. And if your child then proceeds to have a tantrum, you would implement a technique that works for you. Either leave them alone to sort of work it through for a couple of minutes,
Put them
or
outside.
say to them, the emotion is acceptable, the behavior isn't. So you're allowed to feel angry, but you're not allowed to throw things. So we distinguish very clearly between the fact that feelings are acceptable, but behaviors are
is
not
a different thing.
acceptable.
I suppose you're not
Absolutely.
thinking of that in the moment, but
No.
you have to figure out a way and learn it. Now that's the age, Bridget, but what about personality? And we know children have personalities from the time they get here. Now, when do you take that into consideration, and that's her personality or his personality, and this is how we deal with this child discipline-wise?
Well, I think very much in terms of the strategies that you select, you need to make sure that they actually match the personality. And lots of the parents that I work with have had huge success with the first child, and lovely little girl, and she's cooperated, and then a little boy comes along and he's got a completely different personality, and none of those things work. So I think really it is a consideration where you sit down and you say, okay, he's very pig-headed and stubborn, so it's going to take longer, or a different strategy is necessary.
Let's talk about culture very quickly, culture and religion, and what part this plays in disciplining your child. Many cultures and religions believe spare the rod, spoil the child. So, I mean, when do you take that into consideration, and when do you look at all these other aspects as well? And how do you do this with all of this information?
Absolutely. Well, I think in your home, how you were raised, how your culture is perceived is going to really dictate how you discipline your own children. So you're going to enforce things that you believe. And you're going to find a fit for your family, and that's what's important.
And that takes time, I think.
Yes,
it takes time
absolutely.
to figure out who's who in the zoo.
I don't
More
think
like
we ever get there. I don't think we ever get to a stage where we say, right, we've got that waxed.
Oh, you shattered
It's
my
a
heart.
process.
It's a process, an ongoing, a work in progress. Well, stay with us after the break. We meet a mum who's made some major inroads with her 4 kids, but is still battling with some discipline issues. If you'd also like to be part of today's chat, contact us now on one of our addresses. We want to hear what's happened to you over the past few days. What kind of weekend you had with your kids? Hi again, you're with us on Great Expectations. How frustrating is it when you call your little one once, twice, 6 times, and they still don't come? Well, Mum to 4, Neo Maleka, knows this all too well, and she's with us now to get some much-needed assistance from our pros, Shannon Eggers and Bridget Thompson. They are experts at helping parents to change their children's behavior so it can give us the discipline do's and don'ts. And I think let's just set it out, Bridget, because we were talking earlier about personalities and different children and how you deal with them. In a big family with 4 children, and Neo's very brave, with 4 children, how do you get this right?
Absolutely. Well, in terms of 4 children, you have to look at the age range, because you can't put all 4 children, if their age range is quite extensive, under one blanket when it comes to discipline. You've got to look at the different ages and different expectations, different tools to manage discipline.
Neo's kids, I think, let's just clear it up. They age from 1.5 up to 11. So just to give you an idea of what we're working with.
Big family, I'm going to go back to my original thoughts there and say routine. Routine, structure, communication.
A different one for each child, or as a set?
I think you're going to create a family routine that works for all the different age ranges. I think it'll be very tricky to have a routine for this one and a routine for that one. So you're going to have different expectations within your routine based on the different age ranges, but one routine to make your family run as smoothly as possible.
Well, Neo, you're looking very calm. I'm very surprised. Somebody with 4 kids, with that age, with that range of ages. But what has been your biggest challenge? Like we said, from 1.5 up to 11, and you've got 4 of them. What are your biggest challenges discipline-wise?
My biggest challenge, you know what I hate? I don't want to repeat myself. When I call a child, I want him to come. If she's a little bit far, she must say, "Mommy, I'm coming." That's all I'm asking from them. But you know what? In my house, it doesn't happen that way. You can call them 5, 6, 7th time, and they just don't come. And you end up screaming, "Can't you hear that I'm calling you?" That's the thing that I hate most.
Is this a daily thing in your house?
I can say yes. They're used to it. I can say yes.
So the biggest thing for you is that you don't get that response, and then obviously what repercussions does this have for you? Is that things just don't get done?
The thing is, I get angry, I just lose it, and I start shouting, and I start screaming, of which I know is not right. Because if they came for the first time or second time when I call them, obviously I'm not going to scream. But if they don't come, I'm going to scream at them. So the small thing that I'm asking from them is, girls and boys, when mommy is calling you, just say, "Mommy, I'm coming." If they're busy with something, I understand. As long as they acknowledge, as long as they can show, they show me that, "Mommy, I hate you, I'm coming." That's all I'm asking. Because if they do it to me, they're going to do it to somebody else as well.
It's disrespectful.
Exactly. When you meet them at the street, for example, and you greet them, they won't even greet you back.
Okay, well, if you looked at me like that, I'd be very scared the way you're looking now. But because they can't see you, I suppose they don't respond. Shannon, like we say, common problem. Mum is driven to that point, and I know I had it myself this weekend. You're driven to that point, you're like, who are you? Who is the screaming banshee? You know. So what would be the correct way to deal with an issue like this in a household?
I'd like to say, firstly, I know it's a challenge I deal with my own children as well, but I think you might want to look at this and actually just turn it on its head. No, because I think what happens is when we fall into a trap of sort of calling, and then we say, "I'm calling," I think all the kids start hearing is blah, 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 and they do. They tune you out. So maybe, as a suggestion, it might be a good idea to have a family meeting and say, "Right, let's talk about why it's important. Why it's important to let mum know. Because I know you're safe, I know you've heard me, it means our household works better." And then perhaps look at turning it into a positive situation and saying, we could look at a reward system. We really want to make sure this family is about good listening. So when mom calls, you either say, "Yes, I'm coming," or you come to see why it is that I've called. Do a star chart, do a marble jar, and perhaps encourage the kids to internalize a good understanding of why that responsiveness is important.
What would happen if she surprised them and did it once and then just left it? Do you think that it would bother them at all, and they'd go, "What's happened here?"
If she didn't respond, they might. You could, I mean, one could experiment, and I think that's the beauty of...
They're just not going to come.
They're just not going to come. You've tried it.
Then it would have failed. But I think this is the important thing to remember with discipline as well. There's no one size fits all. And you have to experiment and find a solution that works best for you. And perhaps shocking them and saying, "That's what we're going to do. I'm tired of yelling and screaming." So there are rewards. There are rewards for kids who respond, and then you set up a structure and a routine. And with time, the lovely thing about that is they start to internalize that routine and make it part of how the household operates and how you communicate as a family.
Now, so listening to Neo's issues with anger, and I mean, obviously she doesn't want to be angry. No mom wants to be angry. Like I said, I was in that position, and I didn't recognize myself this weekend with my little one who's almost 3 years old. And I think we have to look to ourselves and how we manage our anger, Bridget, and how do we get through this moment where you know you shouldn't be doing it, but you're doing it.
Absolutely. And it's so hard because usually when we when we're angry like that, we don't make good choices. We don't discipline effectively. So the trick really is to not allow ourselves to get to that stage and to be more proactive so that it doesn't progress to that stage. Like Shannon says, to go in and put in a strategy where A, you flip it on its head and you're more positive, and B, you're more proactive. I usually accompany a marble jar or a sticker chart for that with a corrective action. So you have your reward structure in place, you call them, if they come immediately, there's a reward. If they don't, there's an immediate corrective action. So that you've got a little package deal to solve the problem. A corrective action that you might use is the naughty corner, the naughty chair, where you say to your children, I'm going to call you. If I don't hear or see you, I'm going to start counting. And if I get to 3, you are going to go into that naughty corner. If I don't have to count and you call out straight away or you appear straight away, there's a reward. And I find that you retrain your children to listen by doing something like that. Often you condition your children not to listen until you shout. If you repeat yourself, repeat yourself, repeat yourself.
Then it becomes a blah, blah, blah.
In her letters to us and in our communication, Neo has said that when Dad calls, they listen, they respond to Dad. Now, what is up with that? Why is it always that Dad's the one that gets
That's very, very common, and that's to do with the tone of voice very often. I find that men lower their voices, and it's much more effective.
menacing?
Where, yeah, it's an authoritative call, whereas Mom says, please come here, please come here. Her pitch goes up, her volume goes up, and the sound she makes is actually irritating to the human ear, and the children shut down. So drop your voice. Use less words. That's something else that Dad does well. He might just say, come here.
I can attest to that because I sounded like the exorcist this weekend and it worked. It did. Lots more to tackle after the break, so don't go away. Keep dialing and typing if you have a question to ask or a comment to add. We want to hear what's happened to you. Welcome back. Today on Great Expectations, we're doing the discipline do's and don'ts. And child behavioral expert Bridget Thompson and play therapist Shannon Eggers are here with us to help Mum Neo Maleka. And in doing so, we're helping you as well. You can also be part of our chat today. So get your message or your question into us now. And a very important issue from a Facebook mummy as well, but we will get to that in a little while. I want to hear from you, Neo, very quickly. What methods of discipline are you trying at home, and do you feel they're working? Do you have concerns about them?
You know what? I tried almost everything. Naughty corner, naughty chair, whatever you call it, dark room, I tried it. It really doesn't work. What my son JJ is saying, whatever he does wrong, he will quickly run to me and say, Mommy, send me to the naughty chair.
Do you smack?
Sometimes
smack?
I do.
You do? Okay, sometimes you don't look so guilty. We're all wrapped in guilt. And you know
I
what,
don't, because that is the only thing that seems to work better.
Does it work for you?
It works. Okay. Even if it's like they are used to it. It works for a moment and they will snap again. And another thing that I have tried is threatening them in a way. Like for an example, I will tell them that I'm going to tell Daddy because I know they listen very well to Daddy. And the other time we had this phrase that I'm going to skin you alive. And they were so afraid of being skinned alive. And that worked for about a year for me. But later on, later on, JJ sat down and thought about it, and he realized that, but Mommy, how are you going to skin me alive? That is not possible.
So quite a few methods you've used here, and some ones that even I'm worried about now. So let's hear from our experts very quickly. From what you've heard Neo say, Shannon, I mean, what's working and what isn't working for her?
I think we were chatting about it a little bit before the show, and I think the important thing about all of these techniques is that we know how to put them into place, and that we are consistent, and that we repeat, because children need repetition and a constant sort of structure in order for that behavior to be modified. So I think even when there is sort of fun made of the naughty chair and it's not taken seriously, that's when you need to be able to find the calm and the strength inside of you to just keep implementing it rigorously and consistently. And I think the important thing about that now is you've got to find a coping mechanism for you too. So what does that mean? Does it mean that you plan better? you and your husband sit and talk about what sort of things are going to result in a naughty chair or a naughty corner. When will you put it into place so that you're very, very clear? Is it 1 warning, 2 warnings, naughty chair? And to put these things into practice when they are still calm. Easier said than done.
I was just going to ask,
Easier
would
said
that
than
work
done.
for you in your household? Do you have the time even to sit down with hubby and plan these things?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
So it's just in the moment,
In
is
the
how
moment.
you've got to react.
Yes.
Some advice for her, Bridget. I mean, especially about the threats, and also just picking up from that, if you make the threat, what are the dangers of that if you're not going to follow through? I'm not saying skin them alive, but other threats along those
Well,
lines.
usually when it comes to threats, I say to parents that you have to follow through. So making the threat, you really have to make a threat that's a possibility, because otherwise it's like shooting yourself in the foot.
They're not going to
going
take you
forth
seriously,
and
am I right?
and it sends such a mixed message. So make real threats and then back them up with an action. And the trick with all of these strategies, like Shannon says, is to be calm. The calmer you are, the better. So being more proactive enables you to be calmer, and using structures, using like repetition, a refocusing technique where you repeat your instruction over and over allows you to be calm and to follow through.
It's a mantra
rather
almost.
than getting all emotional and jumping in and making threats that you can't back up with an action.
About timeout specifically, I'd like, just for Neo's sake as well, I mean, I know people use different methods. People say don't use your child's bedroom. I know some people who put their kids in a bathroom, turn the lights out, which doesn't sound quite right. I think we have to be very careful about how and where we do timeout as well so that it's effective, Bridget.
Yeah, usually you need to have a good look at your house and find a space where your child's going to be comfortable and not threatened, but a little bit isolated. Because the trick with timeout is the isolation. It's not to terrify or traumatize. So locking them up somewhere dark may not have the right effect. You may need to look at the bottom step, for example, on the stairwell, which is a little bit round the corner from where you're all at. You can still keep an eye on them, they're still safe, they're nearby, and that works effectively. The older the child, sometimes a bedroom does work well, preferably not their bedroom, because usually then they just go in and play and lie on their bed, and there isn't a sense of a corrective measure there, it's more of a pleasure. So another room in the house, for example, a spare room, where there isn't anything to stimulate them and they have to sit for a duration of time.
Now, Neo's tried so many things, Shannon. Now, can she start? I mean, she's got an 11-year-old who's been exposed to her methods so far. Can she start on a clean slate? Is it too late?
I don't think it's ever too late. I think it's more difficult the older a child becomes because you haven't implemented it very early, but it's never too late. And I think the beauty of an 11-year-old is that you can sit, you can have a meeting together, you can discuss your options, you can explore her feelings and your feelings, you can draw up a contract together. You can't do that with a toddler, but you can with an 11-year-old. So I think the lovely thing is there's more opportunity for communication, and you can say to her, you want her to reach her full potential, to be this awesome human being. You want to connect with her, you don't want to be yelling. So you flesh it out, you discuss it, and absolutely never too late. Never too late.
Now, anything you want to ask our experts before we let you go?
I think I've got something on my throat.
You can have a glass of water. There you go.
Thank you.
I'm just going to tell you a story about my timeout experience with my little one when she was she was just over 2. Put her in a timeout, thought I was being very clever in the corner, and the next thing I hear is tick, tock, tick, tock, and she's found the plug point, and she was playing with it. So you can get it very wrong. But but you learn, and I think as mom, like you said to me earlier, Bridget, it's hard being a parent. It's the hardest job you'll ever have, and you will learn. And I think if there's anything you want to ask our experts, I
want to ask, is it wrong to instill a sense of values in my children? Like, for an example, I'm trying to make them understand that cost of living is too high. Like the kind of waste food, for an example. I get a little upset with that, and I'm trying to make them finish their food. Is it wrong? Am I expecting too much from my kids?
Oh, that's a good question. Is she expecting too much for them to understand these things?
Wanting to implement values in our children is very important, and maybe it's just thinking about how we do it. Certainly there's nothing wrong with teaching them about the value of money and the privilege of having a plate of food on the table, but maybe to think about it differently and empower them. If they can't finish what's on their plate, maybe they need to be more involved at dishing up time. And you say, okay, well, you tell me how much would you like on your plate, provided it's reasonable. You certainly aren't going to let them be in charge of what gets dished up, but involve them in that decision there, because of course if a person's tummy is full, there's only so much we can fit in. So maybe we find a way of negotiating where you're still in the position of power with regards to the mealtime, but they're part of the decision making about how much food they can take into their bodies.
And coming, I think, coupled with this issue is comes the issue of spending money and how demanding they can be, and how much do you give, Bridget, because all of this falls into this
Yes,
spectrum.
absolutely. And teaching them the value of money is vital. So yeah, I think involving them there too, taking them to the shops, showing them how much it costs to buy a whole trolley full of food, so that when they are wasting food or not wanting something, to realize that, yeah, hard-earned money's been spent on that.
Do you do that at home? Do you do money for chores, especially with your older kids?
Yes, we do.
And is it
We
working?
do. Kitumetse is quite into entrepreneurship. When they've got an entrepreneur day at school, they do sell with Malebo, and they've got their own money saved. So sometimes when they want to buy something, I make them buy it from their money. Because they've got money already.
So you're already doing it?
I'm already doing it.
You are instilling
It's
those.
just that sometimes they find it difficult for me, for them to, like, for example, they want to buy expensive CDs. For example, Kitumis want to buy a CD that costs 400 rands. So I'm going to say, no, it's a little bit too much, because it's going to take all your money that you worked for. So I'll teach her to buy a little bit cheaper thing and save more. That's what I'm doing.
All right, so have you found this helpful? Have you picked up anything today that you think you're going to go home and try, and it's going to make a difference to you? And you're going to just hone in on that threatening look as well, because that works for me. I would be very scared, like I said, if that was my mom looking at me that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck. Good luck
very
with you know, and let us know how it goes. Let us know if any of these you know, pointers do help you, and I'm sure we'll let our mums out there know as well that yes, they do work.
Definitely.
And even the experts, sometimes we have our rough days, ladies.
Absolutely.
We don't get it right. I'm not an expert anyway. But please do keep us updated on your progress.
Thank you
Stay
very
with
much.
us for a deeper look at the issue of smacking. We do love getting your questions or feedback, so send a message now. We're also opening the lines, so call us on 011 447 1742 to get your discipline issue sorted out by our pros. Hi again on Great Expectations. Today we're talking about how to discipline our children, and I have to be perfectly honest with you, it is one of the toughest jobs I've ever had to do, and I bet most of you mums feel the same way. We can't always get it right, as we've been hearing, and sometimes we're reduced to screaming, flailing banshees like I was this weekend, but we can try to do a good job of it most of the time. Now, Shannon and Bridget have both made careers out of helping parents with discipline issues, and they're still with us to impart their well-earned wisdom. Now, we received an email from a desperate mom, Tracy, who couldn't make it to our studios today, but she has some pressing issues to sort out, and this is what she said. My 20-month-old son, Christian, is full of tantrums and sometimes even smacks me in the face when he gets angry. I've tried since he was 1 year old, timeout, smacking on the bum, talking nicely to him, and nothing works. I smack him when he smacks me or his dad, but when we are in a public place, I tap him on the hand and tell him no. Now, my mom smacked me and my sister, and we learned from it, so I don't see why my little one can't be disciplined like that too. And his 8-year-old sister was disciplined like that, and it worked for her so far. When he's tantruming, I tell him no, it's not nice, and if he goes on, I put him in his camp cot until he calms down. But he only calms down until you take him out of the cot. I need help. It certainly sounds like it. I feel my hubby also needs to learn how to discipline my little boy, because it feels like it's only me that's doing it, because he feels sorry for him, as Christian was almost 3 months prem. Now, before we start looking at Tracy's issues, there are other mums who have similar problems, and let's hear about let's hear from some of these other Facebook mums as well. My little boy is 15 months old and he keeps hitting us. How should I discipline him? And that's from Lerona. My 13-month-old grabs me in my face, pulls my hair and slaps me when he's angry. How do I discipline him? And that is from Robin. And I think let's go to Tracy's issue first. And firstly, what are the main things that you can identify here, Bridget, especially and with the smacking and the different things that she's doing here? There's lots of stuff going on with Tracy trying to get this right.
For me, what I highlighted in hearing that was that there's inconsistency in the approach. When we're at home, he's in the camp cot when he's smacking. When he's out, he only gets a tap on the hand. Mom does it like this, Dad does it like that. So for me, the first step for those parents would be to look at what they can do everywhere consistently to deal with that problem. So to sit down and work out exactly what they're comfortable with and what will be effective whenever that child lashes out. Also to look at the age of the child. You know, sometimes children are too young to physically understand that behavior is a problem, and there are simple little things that you can do to put a stop to it. So I think in terms of all three our examples where little ones, and we're talking about little ones younger than 2, are lashing out, there sometimes the strategy is just to grab their hands, to make that eye contact and to say no, and to let them know that you're not happy with that, then to move on to something else, to distract, to move away, but to highlight the fact that you're not happy with that behavior, to pull those hands away from wherever you're being hit.
And I think, Shannon, it's a good time to just get straight to it about smacking. I mean, where do we stand on smacking? We can't tell a child, don't hit, but you hit them to say, don't hit, you know. I'm telling you, don't hit me, but that doesn't work.
I think there's some challenges around smacking, and if you unpack the challenges, then you understand a little bit better around why it's not always an effective means of discipline. Either it's a reactive thing, so you reach out and you smack, so you're showing your child you are not able to control your responses and your behavior, and we want to model good behavior for them. The other thing is if you say to them, you're going to get us back when we get home or when your dad comes home. Where is the immediate consequence for a behavior? It's very seldom that we will smack when we calm. We do it when we're out of control, when we're angry, when we're overwhelmed, when we're desperate and we think nothing else has worked, so we resort to a smack. Yet you're saying to your little person, you're allowed to be angry, but you may not do this, or you may not hit your sister, or you may not, but then we carry out that behavior ourselves.
And
so
they're confused.
It's inconsistent, it's messy. Although parents will often say it's fast and it's effective, the action is fast, yes, absolutely, but the effectiveness I really would question. And I think if we're able to, in a calm space, step back, ask yourself those questions, then I think we often get to the point where we think it's not the best thing.
But Bridget, is there ever a good time to smack? Is there ever a right time? Is there a right way to do it?
There is certainly a right way to do it if it's your choice of tool to use. And I think that's when you have calmed down. I'm not saying 10, 15, 20 minutes later, but to catch yourself, to allow yourself a little bit of breathing space so that you are calmer. And also, I think, always as a last resort. I find quite a lot of the people that I work with smack regularly, and
it means nothing.
It's actually ineffective. Because the children know, I'm going to get a smack, and then 10 seconds later they're doing it exactly the same. So yeah, as a last resort and in a as calmer approach as possible.
Okay, I'm going to give you a scenario from my side and what happened to me last week, because I've been banging on about what's been going on in my household. I mean, I had my little one in the middle of the night get up and have a tantrum, and I get up for work at 3:30 in the morning, and this was about 10, then it was 11, then it was 12. Go to her room. She's had a tantrum about how her blanket is placed and where her teddy bear is placed, and whether the teddy bear has enough, and screaming. And I have my parents come to visit. I've got a 5-month-old baby at home. We're all sick. I was getting fluey, and she had 2 blankets, and I gave her a little tap on her leg, said, stop screaming and talk to me. Was that wrong?
Did it work?
And she's almost 3. No, she screamed louder. Okay. And I don't usually do that, so I don't know if she was in shock.
You know, Yvette, I'm never going to say to a parent it's wrong. It's your choice in terms of your tool to discipline.
Ordinarily, it wouldn't be my choice. It was like I say, it was circumstances, it was the timing, it was me being tired and feeling sick.
Can I ask you a question? Did you feel guilty?
I felt very guilty. I went to work the next morning and told all the mums about it. And they said it doesn't count. She was covered by 2 blankets. But anyway.
Well, I think there you've got to look at what could I have done differently. And you've got to look at the whole situation. Stressed, tired, everybody's sick. It's the middle of the night, you're desperate for that sleep, And sometimes, you know, the behaviors do push you over the edge and you do make a decision that in that moment you're going to regret. I think the trick there is to go back and say, what could I have done differently? And usually, when you analyze it, you could have been more proactive in the beginning and not let it get to that. So gone back and said, right, where would you like your blanket and your teddy? Come over here, put it where you want it, satisfy that need, instead of trying to say, leave the blanket and the teddy, it's not important, go to bed, you know. Meet the child's need, read the behavior.
But I did do it, and she just was hearing none of it. I think she just wanted to. Turns out she was ill the next day, but still. But still. And obviously, like I said, I was feeling a lot of guilt, Shannon, the next day. And would something like that really, really completely damage your child? And how do you mend that relationship? Because people say to me, she won't remember.
Well,
but,
she may remember, she may not remember, depending on what she holds on to and what's important to her. But I think what is so critical to remember is you will not get it right all the time. Nobody does. It's impossible, so park that idea. But when we do get it wrong, that we're able to go back and have reparation. You know, we talk about modeling for our children how to behave appropriately. You're wrecked with guilt. So you go back to her the next morning or the next afternoon and you say to her, last night was a tough night, you know, Mum was very frustrated, you were feeling yucky, and I smacked you on the leg. And maybe that wasn't the right thing to do because I was feeling very angry, and you can chat it through. So we need to also be able to apologize to them when we get it wrong, not to the point that you are completely disempowered or handing over the power, but I think that communication is vital. She's not scarred for life. You're going to have ups and downs. Where to from here? It's what you do most of the time. It's not those isolated incidents.
Well, we did have a chat afterwards, and then she's apologized every day since. I'm sorry for screaming and shouting. I think it's very important to say there are no hard and fast rules about smacking, and it's what works for your family, but you've got to figure out, and there are boundaries, and you're not supposed to hurt your child.
No.
And you're not supposed to harm them. Well, thanks, Tracy, for writing to us, and we hope that we've given you a little bit of a guideline as to where you and your hubby can go with this. We've got a little more time after the break to help more of our viewer mums with some of their discipline problems, mine as well. We might not get to your message, but we'll give it a good bash. We'll be right back. Hi once again. Today on Great Expectations, we've been looking at the do's and don'ts of discipline. We should never blame and shame a child. We should, though, make their mistakes a learning experience for them. The key is to be consistent and respectful, mums, and beyond that, just do your best, because like we say, it is a hard, hard job. Now, ex-teacher and child behavioral expert Bridget Thompson is here, together with play therapist Shannon Eggers, and they're both mums, so actually they walk the talk every day. And we have a little time left to help you with some of your issues, so let's get cracking with some emails and messages that have come through from you. A very important issue from a Facebook mummy. My 8-month-old refuses to sit in his car seat. I don't know if I can discipline him as yet. What should I do? And that is from Manku. Now, the car seat issue is a big one.
That's a nice one.
That's a nice, Shannon, tackle that
non-negotiable. The thing is, once your child is restrained and strapped in, they are restrained and strapped in, it's not an option in terms of safety. So I think it's a very clear, consistent that you say, this is what we do when we get in the car, in the seat, strap them in.
8 months old, they'll get used to it.
Absolutely. Consistently.
Right. So
you may have a few journeys where they scream the whole way there, but yeah, perseverance.
Just turn Barney up and you won't hear them. Right, let's go to Liesel in Clarkstorp. She's got a question for us. Hi there, Liesel.
Hi there.
How can we help today?
Yes, please. I would like to know, I have a son that's 2.5, and I just found out he's autistic as well. So I don't like smacking him, and I have tried the naughty chair, actually just by taking him out of the room where I am, and then he would scream, and he actually looks traumatized. So I would like to know, is he old enough for me to use this strategy, and how can I do it so that he understands, because he's not very verbalized yet. So he doesn't speak much, although he seems to be understanding. But, you know, I'm not sure. His response was not good when I did it. It worked, but I'm unsure about it.
Right, 2.5 years old. Thank you very much, Liesel. And very difficult for any parent to be in this situation, having just found out as well. Bridget, the naughty chair, a 2.5-year-old autistic child? How does Liesl deal with discipline there?
You know what, I'm going to give you a very generalized answer here, but I'd really need to meet mom and see the little guy in order to be successful there. But yeah, I found that with autistic children from about 2.5, you can use the naughty chair. I would probably put the chair in the room and I'd read the child's responses very carefully. You know, you have to be careful. Mom said he looked a bit traumatized. Sometimes that can be manipulative and pull on mom's heartstrings. Sometimes it's actually very effective and you need to follow through with it. So I think mom needs to trust her gut instincts there. Read the child, read the situation. She mentioned that it worked, but she wasn't necessarily comfortable with it. So I would persevere and see how it goes.
Trust your instinct. You know your child.
Absolutely.
You spent 2.5 years with him, Liesl. So I hope we've given you some guidelines there. A very interesting email from single mom Queen, and a very common thing in South Africa. I'm a single parent with 3 kids aged 5, 4 and 3. My eldest is a boy and then I have 2 girls. I'm having trouble disciplining them. I just don't know what to do anymore. Sometimes I feel it's only around me that they misbehave because no one else complains about them. I'd appreciate any advice from a mom about to lose her mind. Sorry, Queen. Some advice for Queen there. And we hear it from everybody else, but your child is not like that at school.
Well, we hear people say that you raise your children for how you want them to behave in the world out there, and often you don't always see, I think, the results of the hard work that you put in, because home is a place where you feel comfortable, where you let it all hang out, where you feel safe enough to express your frustrations. But I think not to underestimate the value of consistently keeping to your approach to discipline, your routine around managing behavior that's unacceptable. If they're behaving well outside the home and with others, then she clearly is doing a lot right.
So she is doing, so what can she do at home to help herself and help her cope, Bridget, at home with these kids?
I just want to mention that being a single parent is very challenging because you're the nurturer and the disciplinarian, and of course you don't have a partner next to you to say, I'm going to tell Dad, was that okay, or back me up here. So hats off, you know, if she's being successful out there, she's already on the right track. And the trick is just a little bit more routine, probably, and a little bit more consistency. So to continue with those things in the home, she's bound to persevere.
And just some tips for her to deal with her own stress levels, to recognize them and to deal them so that she can be okay and they can see that.
A bit of quiet time, a bit of time out for mom, so that she can regroup and be calm when she's got to enforce that discipline.
And I think, Shannon, very important as well, like we say, it's easier to say it, but just your top tip for mums and dads and parents in general, when you're at that point where you could go over the edge or you could pull back, what should you ask yourself? What should you think in that
I think before we're even at that point where you could go over the edge, it's essential that there's planning around discipline, that you sit down with your partner or you sit down by yourself and you get your head straight on how you're going to do it, how you want to do it, and what you're thinking about discipline. Because if you're thinking in those moments they are trying to drive me insane, that'll push you to that point of breaking a lot quicker than if the question you repeat in your head is, what is this behavior about? How do I tackle it best?
So, and I think the most important things we've picked up is routine and consistency, and don't make threats that you can't live up to. That I brought you here and I'll take you out is not going to work. Bridget, Shannon, thank you very much. Your advice has been invaluable today. From our very own South African super nannies to Joe from the UK, tomorrow Super Nanny brings you her special methods of discipline. Be afraid. Goodbye, and remember, you're a great mommy.